C'est un personnage sans doute très différent des personnages de mes premiers films,
very different from my
les
other films.
adolescents.
Although I do think the protagonist in this film is
Mais au
different
fond, c'est la
to
même forme
my previous
d'inspiration
films.
qui a à voir avec
You already mentioned it
le passage
beforehand,
du
they
temps,
were
avec le
younger
rapport
people,
au
but the
destin
source of
et la quête de
information
sens.
remains the
Quand
same.
j'écris,
Time is running out for us
je
and through our
m'identifie à tous les
hands, and
personnages
this is
que
true for
j'écris,
all of us. I
que ce soit des hommes, des
identified with this
femmes,
very strongly, with those
c'est vraiment
protagonists in my
qu'après coup que
films,
j'ai
be
la
they women
distance
or
qui
men,
permet d'analyser, de dire pourquoi je suivais, mais il y a une forme
afterwards,
de nécessité qui a à voir avec, encore une fois, avec
you have
quête
this
de
control
sens,
over
un regard
the
sur
topic.
sur
But first and
l'existence.
foremost, it's about the meaning of life and also looking back, a retrospective of what's happened.
I like the details very much. The way this character is told, that she's a philosophy professor and her husband also, and where they live, and all these details. Where do you get them from? Is it something that you saw on somebody else's life, or where do these details come from?
Well, of course, it's quite difficult for me to go back and look at this, especially if you talk about, for example, a teacher of philosophy. But of course, my influences, of course, in the
Maintenant, je suis
writing.
presque étonnée de pourquoi j'ai attendu d'une
Of
certaine
course,
manière
there
10 ans
were
avant
the effects
d'aborder
on the script, and
ce
I wonder
sujet,
why
parce que
I've
pour le
waited
coup,
so
on m'a
long
souvent dit que mes films étaient
before
biographiques, autobiographiques, mais
really
finalement,
turning to this
de ce
topic.
point de vue-là, c'est le premier film
People
que je fais
say that
réellement sur le
my
monde dans
films
lequel
are
j'ai grandi,
autobiographical, and perhaps you could say that here as well. It's a film about the world I was born into and grew up in, two parents who are both teachers of philosophy. That was always where I felt at home. Books, philosophy, thinking, and philosophizing, that was where I was at home. Now, as regards my role,
oui, ça fait partie du charme et de la
force
de ce personnage.
This does belong to it, Uma. It's
Voilà,
about the strength
qui peut à la fois
Natalie shows in this film.
Encore une fois dans la souffrance, dans la douleur, mais qui peut aussi
She's a woman who suffers
avoir
as a result of the circumstances in her life, these breaks in her life, but she also has enough distance and humor to look at things in a little bit more of a relaxed fashion. And as I said, I think that's a part of this this feeling that we have, this drive for survival. And she does everything she can in order to survive this very difficult moment in her life. And as I'd said beforehand, that is what really enriches, or is the enrichment, the richness of her inner life. We're not just reducing her to simple characteristics or a woman who, for example, is only second class. No, it's extremely subtle in this film. And that's why we see this multifaceted woman who is not afraid of tackling problems. And also, that's really a part of also the diversity of this character. And that, of course, always then leads to further questions in a film. If things aren't delineated clearly as regards the figures, no, I'm saying it can be also much more nuanced, and also the loneliness that she retracts into does not necessarily need to be seen as melancholy and melancholiness or sadness. It can also be seen differently. Now, the second part of your question is a very deep question, in fact, that you're asking, how cinema has developed over the past 20 years. That's difficult to give you just one answer to.
On a l'impression souvent que c'est difficile de traiter de certains sujets au cinéma, et peut-être que
the film does still deal with topics that are still taboo, that are difficult for us to speak of. And some of the questions, the issues, there were some of them we really have to fight hard for. But I think that was always the case. And it's always a case of an act of resistance to make a strong film and to show that strength of character. And that was from the word go right through the middle and also today. That's a difficult job, and that would be my cogent analysis. These questions come up time and again, and they require us to show that women are equal to men, and that is my assumption. And I think that if a woman washes up, that shouldn't be shocking to other women. That's how I see it, and I don't have the impression that if a woman, if I then film her while she's washing up dishes, doesn't mean that I'm showing a bad view of women. No, not at all.